Aloha and good afternoon. This afternoon we are going to discuss a hot political issue that has been brought to prominence by one of the Republican candidates, and that's Donald Trump. And he has spoken quite a bit on immigration. This afternoon, my guest is Eric Kawatani, who is an attorney, and he specializes in immigration law. So before we get into the subject, Eric, can you give us your professional background, your firm that you practice with, and your areas of concentration in the immigration field?
Well, Roy, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. I began doing immigration way back in 1981. I started at a medium-sized firm, old Kamina firm, Fong and Miho. And at Fong and Miho, the Fong was Clarence Fong, and he was the senior immigration specialist in town at that time. And because I spoke Japanese, they thought it was a good idea for me to do not only real estate and corporate matters, but also immigration. Immigration became a very major part of my practice. Mm-hmm. And I've been practicing immigration slowly from that time until now. The firm changed to McCorriston Miller, and it is currently, we call M4, but it's McCorriston Miller Mukai MacKinnon. And I've been practicing immigration law basically since 1981. And I began doing some family immigration, did a lot of business immigration, especially during the bubble years. And I do both, primarily business, but family together with that.
Eric, before we get on in detail with the application process for, say, business or family immigration matters, let us talk briefly about the attempt by President Obama to reform the immigration laws as such. What is your opinion or your take on his attempt to reform the immigration laws in America?
Well, I think the president several years ago realized that the immigration system in America is just broken. It's
When you say broken, what exactly do you mean, broken?
Well, I guess the number one thing that everybody points to is the number of illegal immigrants in the U.S. The second thing is the fact that you have all these people pouring, I shouldn't say pouring, but coming into the U.S. illegally when there are people who have petitioned legally, and because the way our system works, their quota numbers, and some people have 14, 15 years to wait in the quota system. They're patiently waiting out of the country while other people are coming in, and up to about...
Coming in illegally.
Illegally.
Yes.
But up until about 15 years ago, there was an expectation that Congress every maybe 15, 20 years would have an amnesty act. So you come in, you work illegally, and you wait, and eventually an amnesty bill goes through, and so you become legal. So why should you stay outside, wait, patiently legally, when other people are coming in illegally and gaining amnesty? And that's the argument that a lot of the anti-immigration people have been talking about. And I think that when the president tried to push comprehensive immigration reform through, what he was saying is, we want a singular system that will address all this imbalances in the system, and the business interest, the family interest, let's put everything in one pot and let's remedy the situation. Well, what he did basically was to antagonize everybody, because you can't have a comprehensive system that will satisfy everybody. You had the anti-immigration people who were upset because they called it amnesty. You had the pro-immigration.
Eric, let me just stop you. What is this so-called amnesty? If you are in the United States illegal, and there's an amnesty program, you apply, and what do you apply for?
Well, basically, you are able to apply for permanent residence. Well, let's go back to
Sure.
back in 1996, or I can't remember the year,
Right.
but that was the last real amnesty program that was in place. Basically, if you came here illegally from a certain date onwards, and you had a clean record, you had family here, you could pay $1,000 more
Yes.
than the filing fee, and you could cure the illegality and become a green card holder.
Oh. So you go directly to a permanent visa.
That's correct.
Well, that's a wonderful program.
Well, exactly. And,
for the illegal immigrant.
and I think the intent in past years was basically to bring these illegal workers into the working tax-paying segment of the population.
I see.
So it was a positive.
I see. But during the wait period, for the lack of another term, I say wait period, you wait 14, 15 years, you can't apply for a Social Security card, can you? The illegal immigrant.
Well, now you can't, but in past years,
Yes.
there were the Social Security application process was pretty loose, and so you could get Social Security numbers.
Even if you were an illegal
Yes.
immigrant.
And of course, you have that whole underground system where people were selling Social Security numbers of people who had passed away, or.
Oh, I see.
I mean, there was a pretty significant underground, say, industry servicing this type of situation. And, I mean, the joke was, when I used to go to the immigration conferences, that in New York City, which is a great fashion industry mecca, that the American fashion industry was being supported through these illegal workers from South and Central America that worked in these little backroom factories.
But did they pay federal income taxes?
Yeah.
Even if you were illegal?
In those days, you could, because you could have a Social Security number and you could file.
I
But
see.
after, basically, what made this tightening effective was the Patriot Act and 9/11, when the country realized that it really needed to know who was in the U.S., what they were doing, and to make sure that everybody was whoever paid taxes, had a Social Security number, was legally entitled to do so.
Eric, one situation that has been brought to my attention is that many times a illegal immigrant in the United States has children, and then those children they're caught in this quagmire because they were born in the United States, but their parents were illegal. There's a term for these young people,
The dreamers.
The dreamers, yeah.
And I think Representative, I forgot her name, but I think that was one of her initiatives, is to try to help these dreamers who are in an illegal situation, not through any intentional part of their own, but basically their parents came here and, they were children, they're infants or whatever.
Right.
And they've grown up here, they've known no other country but the U.S.
Right.
And how can we help these people?
Right. Eric, another comment I would like to make before we get on is it is my understanding that each country has its own quota, so to speak, and that, like I had heard in years past, that some of the Chinese who had applied for a status to enter in the United States, because their quota number was so far in the distance, that it took a while for these Chinese immigrants or non-immigrants to come to the United States. How does this numbering system work?
Well, that's a good question. I can't tell you exactly how it works, but there's demographics which I think the Department of State and the Immigration Service have developed over the years. And this is particularly true of the immigrant visa, especially the family visa situation, where the U.S. believes that there should be a diversity of the immigrants coming into the U.S. And therefore, if one country has a large population that wants to come here, they should not dominate the number of immigrants coming in any one year. And therefore, October 1st of each year is a new quota that is issued by the Immigration Service. There's a set number. I don't have the numbers with me, but obviously, countries like Mexico, China, Philippines, these quota numbers are oversubscribed. And when I tell you about people who have been waiting 11, 12, 14 years, those are primarily the countries where these quota numbers are just, there's so many people trying to come in, and the government basically has developed a quota system whereby smaller countries that, France, European countries where there are not that many applicants have a chance to come in, so that we have a diversity of immigrants each year.
We are going to take our first break, and if anyone has any question, please tweet us at ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll take a break now.
Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and I host Sustainable Hawaii every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon. My guests offer insights on challenging economic and environmental issues facing our state and offer innovative solutions to increasing Hawaii's long-term sustainability. Recently, we've been focusing on sustainable land development, food, and energy security. If you have a project or issue you'd like to discuss on the show or would like to be a guest, please contact me at kirstenbturner@gmail.com. And tune in live weekly or view the show at your convenience at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.
Aloha, this is Reg Baker, and I am the host of Business in Hawaii. We talk about positive stories of businesses in Hawaii, how they have been successful, and how they have overcome some of the obstacles that a lot of us encounter when we try to have a business here. And believe it or not, there are a number of positive stories here, and we want to talk to all of you. So we broadcast live every Thursday at 2 o'clock, and it rebroadcasts again on Olelo Channel 54. So I sure hope to see you next time. Please tune in on Thursdays at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
We are back again, and my guest this afternoon is Mr. Eric Kawatani, and our subject this afternoon is immigration. Eric, let us get to the heart of our talk this afternoon, and I guess the process for this immigration visas is the business visas. Maybe you can explain to us what different categories there are for the business visas.
I think that, especially from Asia, the most popular or talked about visas are the E2 visas,
maybe you can explain what each one is.
Okay. The E2 visa is either a treaty trader or treaty investor visa. And basically, you're talking about a foreign company that invests in the U.S., creates a business or creates a trade, and they're entitled to send either their executive manager or an essential employee. And when they say essential employee, somebody that has skills that are not normally found in the U.S. That is probably one of the most popular ways that Japanese investors come to the U.S.
I presume by that remark that most of your clients are Japanese.
Well, yes, but I also have clients who are Korean and from other countries as
Right.
well.
Okay.
But in fact, at one time, I think Tokyo had the most E2 visa processing of all the overseas hosts. I'm not sure if that's the case anymore.
I see.
But E2 is a very popular visa because if you have a company overseas and the person wants to come here or bring his experienced managers over to run their companies here, the E2 process is fairly straightforward. There's no quota numbers, so it's pretty timely. There's another visa
Timely meaning.
in terms of immigration or the consular
I
officer
see.
being able to issue the visa. The second one is L1 visa, and it's called intercompany. And so, for example, just picking a company, for example, if like Sony, which is based in Tokyo, wants to bring one of their executives here, that would be an intercompany visa. There's a L1A, which is an executive managerial, L1B, which is essential employee, which is similar to an E. That used to be a very popular way of bringing employees over. The L1 visa has had trouble in the past 5-6 years, partially because of problems or abuses which the Immigration Service has been claiming, whereby
This is abuses by the applicant.
the petitioning companies.
All right.
And this is the accusation. The accusation is that big IT companies are setting up offshore companies, getting people, either the engineers or executives or managers, bringing them back to the US, training them here, sending them back overseas, and then gradually growing the offshore
Company.
outsourced company. And then slowly but surely, the jobs start decreasing in the US side and increasing in the overseas.
In other words, my presumption is that these foreigners who come to the United States learn, get some education, go back, and they become American competitors.
Right. Well, they become, it's basically a multinational conglomerate that is benefiting. It doesn't benefit primarily America anymore. It's a multinational that is benefiting from outsourcing the work to cheaper engineers.
I see.
And the classic example, actually, this criticism also goes to the H-1B, but the classic example is in Seattle. To hire an IT engineer there, I think starting salary is probably over $60,000 a year. Well, you can hire the same type of qualified person in India for $35,000. It's probably gone up since these are figures from about 4 or 5 years ago. Well, there's a vast salary difference and profit potential.
Right.
So you can see why a lot of these large multinationals want to develop this L1 program. So there's been a lot of criticism about the L1 visa and a lot of talk about whether or not in future comprehensive immigration reforms, whether or not the L1 will be severely restricted.
I see, I see.
Related to that is the H-1B. The H-1B is the only visa, I shouldn't say the only visa, but of the earlier two visas.
Mm-hmm.
The earlier two visas require a foreign source company.
Foreign source meaning?
The owner has to be a foreign
Oh, I see.
national.
Mm-hmm.
H-1B can be an American company. It could be a foreign based company here as well. But basically, the H-1B is requires that you have a specialty occupation.
Mm.
It's a defined term. And you have someone that at least has a college degree.
Mm.
And they encourage a U.S. college degree, but if you can show the equivalency of a foreign
I see,
degree,
I see.
then you can qualify for H-1B. This visa is severely,
Mhm.
I shouldn't say, the quota is 65,000 a year.
65,000 throughout the world.
Yes.
Mm.
I believe this year there were over 200,000 applicants.
Oh, I see.
And the Immigration Service, and going back to this quota thing,
Yeah.
says, well, it's kind of unfair. And so what we'll do is if we receive more than 65,000 petitioners
Mm-hmm.
the first week that the season opens, then we will turn into a lottery. So it's been a lottery for the past 3 years.
Or for this particular visa?
H-1B, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm.
But it's hotly sought after because
Mhm.
it's primarily IT companies. You know,
Right.
you have Google, you have Microsoft. I
Right.
mean, these companies are seeking 14,000, 10,000 visas
Oh.
each year. They're huge. They need these engineers.
Right.
And the H-1B used to be very popular with the politicians, the U.S., because I think Michio Kaku had called it America's secret weapon.
I
Because
see.
using the H-1B, you get the brightest of all the students in the world, and you bring
Right.
them to the U.S. and you let them work for U.S. companies. So
I
you
see.
have the innovative, you have
Mhm.
the brilliant people coming to the U.S. using H-1B. Well, the criticism now is that the H-1B is being used to, again, like the L1, to develop these people here. Then they send these people back to their home countries, and they develop a offshore company, which then becomes a competitor to the
Very
American
nice.
workers. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Eric. As for the lottery, is how many spots do you have for the lottery? Or is it an unlimited number
No,
for the lottery?
it's congressionally, by statute, it's mandated 65,000, of
Right.
which 20,000 have to go to master's master's degree holders. The rest are bachelors.
Yeah.
And there's no country limitation here. It's just a matter of pure lottery. And so the season opens April 1st.
I see.
You send your petition in, and normally, well, in
Right.
past years, in a couple of weeks, you would know. Well, you can imagine opening 200,000 envelopes, processing, putting their numbers in, then having a lottery, and then having to tell everybody whether they got it or they didn't. Well, this has been taking up to just past June of this year.
I see. Eric, there's another kind of lottery, isn't it?
Yes.
That lottery doesn't depend on your vocation or employment or professional background. It's just luck. Am I correct?
Yes. It's called the DV program, the diversity program, and it was proposed and passed through the initiative of Senator Ted Kennedy. And the back talk is that he wanted to find a way by which his Irish forefathers, I mean, his background is Irish, that people from Ireland could come to the
United
U.S.
States, yeah.
But he couldn't obviously favor the Irish, and so he had to propose this huge international program, and it's called the diversity program. Basically, the concept is this: America needs a diverse population.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're not the brightest person, you're not the richest person, we want a diversity of people. And two basic things: we want you to have a college degree.
Oh.
If you don't have a college degree, then you
I see.
you at least have 2 years of work experience.
I see.
And that, of course, after that, you can't be a terrorist, you can't be a Nazi sympathizer or something
Right.
like that. But in any event, this program is held, in fact, for those who are interested, October 1st is the opening day of that lottery. It ends November 2nd, I believe.
How do you apply for this?
Just go online.
Yes.
Very simple, and you can do only one application, but then you can do it online.
Oh, I see. Is there a fee for that?
No, I believe it's free.
Oh, it's free. So if you are lucky, you might.
Yes, you might get it, and then you have to pay all these fees. But it's.
But you don't have this arduous process of filling in complex forms and applications.
Not in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think might be half a page, and
I
you
see.
just do it online. But if you're selected,
Yeah.
then there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot
I
of,
see.
you have to have medical clearances. You need to have a police clearance, and it's a very tedious, and it's a big race because this is what the service does. To make it's a very complicated way of figuring out who gets in, but they give everybody numbers, and so you have to check.
Each person who applies.
Yeah, each person who applies gets a number. But if you get selected, you get
Yes.
a number. And let me give you an example. Someone from Japan gets selected, and he gets his letter, and he's notified that he's number 6,000. Well, then you have to start looking at the monthly visa bulletins to see whether your number is going to come up or not. Well, there's a trick to this whole thing, because even if you're selected, you need to convert that to a green card by September 30th of the following year.
Yes.
Well, unless you know what the whole system is, you're going to stumble. There's so many things to do, and you have to do it right and within a timely manner. And you have a lot of people who they thought that they're just going to come pack their bags and come here, but they can't. They need to go to an interview. They need to do all kinds of stuff.
Eric, let's take another break. And anyone with any question, please tweet us at ThinkTech Hawaii. Thank you. So.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on ThinkTech Hawaii. Center Stage airs every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and of course you can check out our archives on YouTube or on ThinkTech Hawaii anytime you like. Why should you do that? Because this is an arts show that I believe is making a difference in lives. We talk with artists of various ilk. We talk with painters and writers, playwrights, novelists, poets, sculptors, dancers, you name it, directors, actors, of course. And we don't only talk about what people do, but we talk about how they do it. And my favorite part of the conversation, we talk about why they do it. And it's really common on this show to hear people say, wow, I didn't think about it that way. And it's very common to hear people afterwards who have seen the show say the same thing. And I hear all the time that people are inspired by the conversations that we have. So why don't you join us and be inspired too? That's Center Stage on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. We'll see you Center Stage.
We are back again, and my guest this afternoon is Mr. Eric Kawatani. And our subject this afternoon is immigration. And Eric, we have I shouldn't say more, we have other important topics to cover. So let's move along here. And maybe briefly, could you just talk to us about student visas?
Well, student visas are, they're called F1 visas, but there's the academic student, and that's the F1. And you have a vocational student. Somebody comes here that wants to learn like mechanical repairs and things like that. And that's the M1 program.
I see.
Student visas usually are gotten by going to the school. The school will review.
Say if I'm in Korea, in Seoul, and I want to come to the United States to learn English as a second language, do I contact the school directly?
Yes. So you contact the school, you have your qualifications, and if the school accepts you, they will issue what's called an I-20. And with that I-20, you go to the interview at the embassy, the consular post, and they will review whether or not you're a true student. And there are a lot of unwritten rules. For example, it's very unlikely that a kindergartner or a first or second grader
Right.
will be able to get their F1 visas because the consul officer is going to be concerned who's going to take care of these children. So unless you have some sort of unusual circumstances, the usual F1 student is in middle or high school or in college.
I see.
And in college, the preference is, of course, people who are in regular, the academic degree programs.
I see.
Many people come initially to take an English language.
Eric, the reason why I talk about this English, this school or the student visa is that in Hawaii there is an industry of teaching English to many foreigners. There's so many English as a second language school that it's a huge industry here. And this is my reason for bringing up the subject of student visas.
Yes, it's very common, and in fact, I think currently, I think the consular posts are pretty reasonable about a person applying for F1 visa to learn English, and I think a lot of countries in Asia encourage their citizens to learn English. I'm not sure if you remember an incident back probably in early 2000s when the Department of State suddenly took, well, I shouldn't say Department of State, the consular post in Tokyo decided that there was a question whether or not F1 students going to English language institutes here were really studying or they were just coming here to play. And unless you were a high school student who studied English and you were coming to the US to a degree program, or you were a bachelor degree person in Asia and you're coming to a graduate program, they would give you the hardest time. And the UH had that nice program.
Yes.
And I think many of the private colleges had their English language, English as a second language program.
Right.
They all complained.
Right.
And I believe Governor Kawatani at the time went and pleaded the case with the consul in Tokyo.
I see.
To no avail.
Yeah.
And so for a while, the whole industry was sorely
I see.
impacted, but that's since passed.
I see. Eric, for the sake of time this afternoon, I hear rumors, I hear people talk about some of the current issues at the Honolulu International Airport of tourists who land in Honolulu and some of the difficulties they are now facing at the Honolulu International Airport, mainly by the immigration inspectors. What is your observation?
I have heard that, And I believe that there has been a little more in terms of complaints by regular tourists coming through who have been questioned or taken into secondary, where they've come here maybe 10, 20 times and never had a problem before.
What are they questioned on?
Well, I think there's several issues. Number one is whether or not, if there's several issues that come up when a tourist comes into town. If you come here frequently, like you come here all the every month,
Yes.
well, there's two big suspicions. Is this person working illegally, or is this person trying to find a way of becoming a green card holder here, a permanent resident? And so it really depends on the officer who interviews these people coming in, whether or not they feel that there's grounds for suspicion. And if there is, and I think there's a rule that when you come to the lines, if the officer cannot complete the intake within a certain period of time,
Yes.
then they must send the person to secondary. Okay. So there may be more questions. I don't know. I haven't spoken to CBP, so I wouldn't be able to give you a real accurate response there.
Right.
But the rumor is that it is a lot.
Is it more than, say, 2 or 3 years ago?
Well, I think a little more. Significantly more than what it was 10 years ago.
I
But,
see.
the questions are a little different, I think.
Eric, another thing that I hear from others is that each port of entry has a degree of difficulty. They say Honolulu, New York City is very difficult. They give you a lot of static. If you go to Seattle, it's not as bad. What is your take on that?
Well, everybody has their own stories about this, and I have heard that Honolulu and New York are very, very tough.
Yeah.
But I've had clients who've had terrible experiences in Seattle, and people who've had terrible experiences in LA. And so I think it depends on the type of traveler and the situation where you just hit on a bad moment. Your karma is bad at that moment.
I see. All right. Yeah.
And it's the same issue with consular posts. Some people say that Beijing and
Right.
Shanghai and Guangzhou are terrible places to go, whereas Tokyo is easier. But
Eric, I also hear that sometimes Osaka and Fukuoka are easier than Tokyo. I've also heard that.
well, I've heard the opposite as well.
Oh, I see.
And I haven't had any applicants at Fukuoka recently, but with respect to Osaka,
Yes.
I think that's the rumor for many years, that Osaka is a smaller consulate, it has less traffic going in and out, and therefore it tends to be more accommodating. And I've also heard horror stories on Osaka as well. So I think, like I said, it's a case-by-case situation.
I see.
I haven't taken into account, well, first of all, you have to remember Tokyo has the most applicants
Right.
in Japan. So of
Right.
course, if you have people who have horror stories,
Right.
I mean, the chance that you're going to have a horror story is higher in Tokyo than
I
any place
see.
else.
In Korea, is it Seoul and Busan? The main.
I've only done things in Seoul,
Seoul,
so,
I see.
but yes, there are concert posts outside of Seoul.
So, let me also mention or ask your opinion on this situation. Many times, the petitioner applies for a visa at the Tokyo consulate, and then he has an approval of that application or petition. Then when he enters Honolulu, the Honolulu immigration officer will say, why don't you, we have some questions, please come this way. And so many times the client or the person from Japan might say, I got approval from the American consulate, but when I got to Honolulu, they asked me all these questions. What is your comment on that?
Well, by law, first of all, Tokyo adjudicates the entry visa.
Right.
But the airport, which is CBP, Homeland Security,
Right.
has an independent right of review to interview the person because they determine how long the person stays in the U.S. So it is a two-step process. And there's a lot of stories about people who pass the visa interview in Tokyo, but when they came here and they were questioned, they either said the wrong thing or they had luggage that was contrary to what they said. And so I'll give a case to support that. Professor gets a visa in China, B visa, comes here, presents the visa.
Yes.
Well, he has 5 boxes with them, so he passes immigration, goes down to customs. They said, what's in these boxes? And there's all kinds of equipment. So then they say, hey, look, you may have a tourist visa, but you're not a tourist. I mean, and he eventually got turned back and sent back because basically what he told the embassy when he got his B visa wasn't exactly the same thing when he came here. He planned to sell equipment here.
Eric, another thing that I have been hearing, I don't know if it's true or not, is that many women from Japan come to Honolulu, and then it's obvious that they're pregnant. And I have heard that either by policy or by practice now, that the immigration officers turn them back because they know that, they suspect that these pregnant women would like to give birth in the United States. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think several months ago, there was that big issue in LA where there was an actual industry going on of having a tour from Asia where these people who are pregnant were coming here specifically to give birth to a child who will be a U.S. citizen and go back. And that probably has made things a lot worse. I don't think that the CBP was as brutal or hostile in the past, but I think that, events, news, I think affect how laws are enforced.
I see. Eric, you have been a very informative guest this afternoon, and we have a lot of other things that I'd like to talk about. Maybe in the future we can have you back again and maybe explore other hot button issues in immigration. And by that time, maybe we will have an idea as to who are the front runners of the Republican candidates and see where immigration then stands. So thank you very much this afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you very much.